ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track. And ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
This is The Other Side of Midnight. I'm Frank Morano. Over the last 6 or 7 years or so, I have gotten the opportunity to interview one of the greatest former prosecutors in the history of New York City and someone who has become an incredible chronicler of crime. I've also had the opportunity to interview someone who is fast becoming one of the most talked about novelists, particularly in a very niche aspect of fiction these days. But the amazing thing is they're all the same person. Former star prosecutor, author of true crime, and now an author of fiction that has been critically acclaimed like crazy. Michael Vecchione is a former chief of the Rackets Division in the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office. He's also been an attorney in private practice, and he's a best-selling author whose latest book is Fallen Angel, Book 3, Anarchy, Chaos, Peace. Mike, it's great to talk with you again. Thanks for joining me on the radio.
Frank, thanks for having me. It's always good to talk to you, and thank you for the kind words. Boy, my head is, I don't think I'll fit it on my pillow tonight.
Well,
thank you very
I got to
much.
tell you, Mike, before I interviewed you, before I read your first book, before I met you, I knew only of your reputation, right? I would read the things that were written about you in the papers, and I would think, all right, that guy seems like a part of the problem. It seems like a little bit of a jerk, to be honest. And I have to tell you, you won me over instantly with your outspokenness, with your legal knowledge, with your willingness to speak independently on different things, and obviously with your writing, which is just phenomenal. So it was a lesson to me in not having preconceived notions about anybody.
Well, thank you. I'm glad that I have changed your mind. I'm sorry to hear that you had that initial feeling about me, but now I'm happy to hear that that has changed.
It's probably more a reflection of my own ignorance. Now, I want to take advantage of your legal expertise before we talk about Fallen Angel Book 3. One of the cases that the whole city, the whole country is talking about right now is this Daniel Penny case. Obviously, most people know the details of this Marine veteran who was on the subway, and George Neely was giving a lot of the passengers a hard time. There was the thought that he was a bit of a threat to the other passengers, and he was restrained by Penny. Penny is now on trial for his death. How do you see this? As someone that's been both a prosecutor and a defense attorney, how do you see this playing out? And from what you know of the case, what do you think the right outcome in this case is?
Okay. Well, let me add one other prosecutor, writer, etc. How about subway rider? That's another thing that I should also talk to you about. I have ridden the subway my entire life, and I have to say I've been very lucky, and I have not been in the situation that those folks were that day in that car on the F train. And I took the F train for most of my married life. I lived out in Eastern Queens, and I used to take the F train into work all the time. So I think that, so let me give it to you from that perspective as well as the perspective of my law enforcement background and legal background. I think the case I think Bragg's decision to bring the case was a travesty of justice. I don't believe that Daniel Penny should be on trial for anything. I believe that he was doing the correct thing as a citizen. Some of us would not have done that, and I include myself in that. I don't know if I would have jumped in and tackled some guy who was threatening to kill people and saying that I don't care. I may not go home. I don't care if I go to jail or if I die. I mean, those are frightening words. And for people who aren't trained like me, I'm not trained in martial arts or in fighting. I was a kid when I grew up. I did have my share of street fights, but this is an entirely different thing. So I don't believe that Bragg should have brought the case at all. If this had been a Brooklyn case and it had been the F train in Brooklyn, I would have gone to Joe Hines and I would have said, this is we can't do this. This guy is, maybe we'll do an investigation, but at the end of the day, we're going to close this case out. So let me start with that. Mm-hmm. And what do I think is going to happen? I don't know the makeup of the jury. However, if they are New Yorkers like you and me and people who ride the subway every day, I think this is going to be a slam dunk case. But I don't know them, Frank. I don't know, what the makeup was or is of the jury. So that is an unknown to me. But if I was on that jury, I can give you this: I would not find this guy guilty at all. And the other thing is that from a legal perspective and from a prosecutor's perspective, the defense expert witness, the medical examiner, really, I believe, injected reasonable doubt into this case. So if you don't say, well, I think he shouldn't have done it, I think he went too far, but the standard is did the people prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt? And I believe that medical examiner injected reasonable doubt. And so do I think what I think is going to happen? I really believe that he's going to walk away from this. At least I hope he's going to walk away from it. But would it surprise me if he didn't? No. I've tried too many cases in my life to think that I know exactly what a jury is going to do. But that's the best answer I can give. And I just want to give you one example.
Sure.
I had a case involving the death of a off-duty police officer on July 4th. I forgot what year it was. He was with his girlfriend, and this guy wanted money, and he was on a very big motorcycle, and he dressed well. He was going out to clubbing, and the guy held him up and said, "Give me your bike." And the cop said, "Hey, wait a second, I'm a police officer." And he started to get off the bike, and the guy shot him in the head and killed him. I had 3 eyewitnesses to that. I had his confession, which I took myself. I had him tell me where he dumped the murder weapon. I had him put the murder weapon, identify the murder weapon on videotape and tell me where he brought it. And I had the person in whose apartment he hid the gun after he shot the cop. Okay? Slam dunk. You know what it was? It was totally racial verdict. 2 African-American women said, "I am not convicting another African-American boy." And the cop was an African-American. He was a hero cop.
Wow.
In the South, out in East New York. His entire family was in the courtroom every single day watching the trial. His mother, his father, his brother. And it was a shock. And after the trial was over, the 4-person and several of the other jurors came over and apologized and said those 2 women didn't even want to deliberate, and didn't. So the judge said to me after the hung jury, judge said to me, "When can you be ready?" I said, "I can be ready tomorrow. We'll try the case again." He gave me 2 weeks. We tried it in 2 weeks. I tried it again exactly the same way. 15 minutes, I had a verdict of guilty.
Wow.
So it's totally unpredictable. And by the way, I think it's book 2, I used that case in the devil being the instigator who got the 2 jurors to change their mind.
Wow. I want to ask you about the Fallen Angel series in a second. At 30 minutes after the hour, this is The Other Side of Midnight. My guest is Michael Vecchione. He's the author of, used to be several books. Now I think it's safe to say many books. The latest book is Fallen Angel, Book 3, Anarchy, Chaos, and Peace. Mike, what about this Trump sentence? Obviously, that's another Bragg case that's gotten a lot of attention. Donald Trump got convicted. Now Now he's the president. The federal charges are dropped, and Judge Merchan has sort of delayed indefinitely sentencing President-elect Trump on this criminal conviction. What do you see happening there?
Well, if Merchan is smart, he'll save himself the embarrassment of a reversal on many, many issues that were that he allowed to take place in that case and dismiss it. That's what I think that someone will probably whisper in his ear and say, "Listen, you're going to get reversed, and you're going to be the laughing stock of the profession. You did things that you never should have done." He prevented a defense witness from testifying, an expert defense witness from testifying in the case. I don't know how any judge could possibly do that. So I think that what will happen ultimately is if he doesn't do what I suggested, it'll just 4 years from now or 4.5 years from now, whatever it is, the case will basically melt away. It's almost as if it's like a snowball, and by the time the spring comes around, it'll be melted. So that's what I think. Merchan is a joke. Okay, it was a joke. The whole trial, Bragg was a joke with this case. It was a case that I would have been embarrassed to stand up in a courtroom and argue because I don't even believe it was a crime, quite frankly.
Morning decisions. A creamy mocha frappuccino drink? A sweet vanilla? Maybe a smooth caramel or that white chocolate mocha. Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Start your day with bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drinks. Pick up a bottle near you wherever you buy your groceries.
Clorox Sentiva smells like grapefruit. Cleans like Clorox. And feels like...
Okay, we could be here all day. Try Clorox Sentiva for a trusted clean with long-lasting freshness. Also available in lavender and coconut. Use as directed.
Home means something different to everyone. But with Rocket Mortgage, home can mean even more. It can mean a college education, taming your high-interest debt, even a renovation. We've made it easier than ever to use your home equity. That home you worked so hard for, now it can work hard for you. Call 800-4ROCKET or visit rocket.com to find out more.
Rocket Mortgage, LLC. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSConsumerAccess.org. Number 3030.
Experience a progressive lens engineered with AI from Essilor, powered by individual measurements of your visual behavior. A lens personalized to you by an Essilor expert. Discover Verilux XR Track and enjoy instantly sharp vision in motion and seamless transitions from near to far. Find your local Essilor expert today at Essilor.com.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard that from a lot of legal analysts across the board. Even the New York Times, not exactly known to be defenders of Trump, called it a novel legal theory in which the case was brought. All right, so let's talk about Fallen Angel. Tell me about being a novelist, which is what you've done in this Fallen Angel series, as compared to writing true crime stories. You started out writing about your own cases, and then that expanded to writing about other cases that you weren't necessarily a party to, but there were all things that happened. How was that transition from true crime and your own experiences to writing stories that you've made up? How's that gone?
Well, first, let me just correct you one little thing. All of the crimes in the Fallen Angel series are cases that I either handled directly myself, investigated and tried, or was involved with the investigation and maybe someone else tried it. But all of them I touched and had my hand in. So that was a wonderful way of kind of extending my career. I sat at my desk and was able to use the cases that I had handled and remembered, and quite frankly still had the summations for. I have boxfuls of the summations that I did handwritten, that I have over the course of my career. So I was able to go back to them and kind of relive the moments in the case and the trials and things of that nature.
But so the devil wasn't necessarily sitting in the courtroom in those cases, so there is some element of fiction in these books.
No. I wanted to just say this to your audience, that the cases themselves are real. what I have constructed around the cases in terms of the story of how they developed and how they wound up is all fiction.
Gotcha.
All fiction. So that was the idea. And let me just tell you how this whole thing got started, because I think it'll explain the book and the whole idea of Fallen Angel. I tried a case when I came back to the DA's office in 1992. I was handed a case involving the murder of a young Hasidic Jewish girl who walked the Williamsburg Bridge for exercise every Sunday morning. And she was set upon by a junkie who wanted money from her, which she didn't have, and he was so angry that she didn't have it. He dragged her to a very remote part of the bridge, strangled her, stripped her of her clothes, made it seem as if it was a sexual assault by penetrating her with his hands and whatever else he had, and then later that night went back and burnt the body, doused her with gasoline and burnt the body. When I tried that case, Frank, the thing that I said to the jury when I went through the entire set of facts was, it was such a horrific crime. It was as if the devil had come to Brooklyn and committed this crime and killed this girl. That's how horrible this guy was. And that kind of stuck in my head, that whole comparison or that whole analogy, I should say. And years later, when unfortunately Jerry Schmetterer, my former writing partner and very good friend, passed away, I sat at my desk and I said, what am I going to write next? Jerry and I had kicked around ideas always together, and my idea was to write a book of short stories, true crime short stories, because I have a bunch of cases. So I ran it past my book agent, ran it past another book agent, and they both gave me the same answer, that true crime fans don't like short stories. They want long-form stories. Find a way to tie them together, and then you've got something, maybe. So
and the devil is the common thread throughout all these cases.
That's correct.
I love it.
Correct.
If you're just tuning in, I'm
right.
Frank Morano. This is The Other Side of Midnight. My guest is Michael Vecchione. We're talking about Fallen Angel Book 3, Anarchy, Chaos, Peace. Mike, do I have to read the first two books in the Fallen Angel series in order to enjoy this one?
No, you don't. You don't. You should, but you don't have to, because in each one of the things I learned, Frank, you asked me about the difference with true crime writing and novel and writing crime novels, is that particularly when you do a series, it's necessary to kind of summarize, let's say, book 1 in book 2. And then book 2 and 1 in book 3. So there is enough, and I've done that. And so that when the reader picks up book 3 and begins to read it, the background that I have just laid out to you in terms of the devil coming to Brooklyn and what the character Michael Gioca, how he gets involved, is in there. So you don't have to read 1 and 2. I think you should, because I think you'll enjoy it. But book 3, in terms of cases, I chose, to me, very important cases that I had in Brooklyn. 1 I was more involved in. I'm sorry, 2 I was more involved in than one of them. But I was involved in all 3, in the sense that in one of them I had just simply informants who came to me to tell me about the cases, and they were made after I left the office. So they were very, very I said important, but very troubling cases to me. And the whole idea of the devil coming to Brooklyn is to incite crimes that will upset life in Brooklyn and make the citizens of Brooklyn kind of constantly aware and afraid of what is going to happen next. And the idea is also, and I have him killing police officers, I have him killing firefighters, I have him destroying families. And in one situation at the end of book 2, he gets revenge on 2 fire marshals for coming up with evidence in one of the cases in the book that kind of puts his I call him his minion, his stooge, who he gets to commit these crimes, puts him behind bars. So the devil concocts this whole idea of starting a fire in Manhattan and away from Brooklyn, thinking that that's going to protect the stooge, because the stooge in Brooklyn kind of gets away with what he has done in Brooklyn. And he goes to Manhattan, commits this crime, sets fire to a hotel, and the two fire marshals who really kind of put the devil down and destroyed him in one of the big cases in the book. They both fall through the floor of the hotel. One dies and one is paralyzed. The book 3 starts with Michael. I'm sorry, the book 2 ends with Michael being assigned to this case, even though it's in Manhattan, because it turns out that one of the people who dies in the hotel is a relative of the Manhattan district attorney, so they can't try it there. They transfer it to Brooklyn, and Michael wins the case. And he wins. And now the devil stooge gets put in jail, and he's going to go to jail for the rest of his life, and that's no good to the devil, because this guy is really somebody who he uses to kind of instigate these crimes. So he sets up an escape, and he and his cellmate escape from Attica prison. And the escape, the way that they do it, is also based in fact, Frank. I had a client who was convicted wrongfully, and when he got out, after many years in jail for a crime he didn't commit, he told me that when he first got to state prison, he concocted this idea of how to escape, and he basically was able to get someone in the prison's office of purchase to let him know when washing machines in the prison were being replaced. Now, you might say, what the hell does that have to do with anything? Well, the washing machines are big enough for a prisoner to hide in, and if you can get someone to look the other way when the old washing machines are loaded onto the truck to be brought into back to wherever they're going to bring them, then you can get out of the prison without anyone knowing. And he had set this up in real life. So that's what I'm saying. I use a lot of things that are actual events that happen. And it turns out that my guy didn't escape because the person in the purchasing office got cold feet and they had to abandon it. But I use that whole thing, that whole idea, to set up the escape that the devil has created for his man and for his cellmate. And the idea is he sells them on the idea that they're going to hide out on the Jersey Shore until the heat comes down, then they'll be able to go back and escape the country. But he doesn't tell them that he's got something that for them to do. Before that, it's to rob a jewelry store in Brooklyn, and not to necessarily do it for the diamonds and the jewelry, but because the devil knows that 2 off-duty cops are assigned to the security part of this jewelry store on particular Thursdays when diamonds are delivered. And they come into Brooklyn. The cops come out when these guys are walking into the store, and they get ambushed and killed. Now, how does that fit for my career? Well, I did a case in which two people who were part and parcel of the Attica riots got out of jail, came to Brooklyn to meet another one of their compadres to set up a robbery in Brooklyn. And 2 uniformed cops saw them walking around and just went up to them and asked them what they were doing there because they didn't recognize them from the neighborhood. And the 2 guys opened fire on the cops. One, a guy by the name of Cleveland Davis, who was a member of the Black Liberation Army, killed the 2 cops, and one of the stray bullets killed his partner. And Davis got away, and then gets arrested, and there's a whole story. And one of my very, very good friends, a detective now, retired detective, but he was a street cop then, made the arrest. And the way he made the arrest is a interesting part of the book, one that I have never forgotten. And one other thing about this story is that the main witness in real life, the main witness in the case, was a young woman who was moving into the apartment building where, in front of which this shooting took place, and identifies the shooter that day, the day that it happens. He's arrested, and she identifies him. The case gets put into the grand jury, and before it goes to trial, she gets sick and goes into the hospital. She has a cold. and that's what she thinks anyway, and she's having trouble breathing, goes into the hospital and dies. Oof. She dies in the hospital of a cold, respiratory problem. No prior problems with her health, nothing. And we in the office were stymied. We figured that Cleveland Davis, who had many, many, many followers at that time, got to her and killed her. And it was so unexplained that it was perfect for me to use in the book. I kill the main witness in a different way, but and it involves the devil. But so you can see what I've done. I've taken real cases and I've kind of woven into those cases the idea of Satan being involved in either getting rid of witnesses, making sure evidence is destroyed, that kind of thing. And then what happens after the devil loses, and he does lose in these cases, there's a price to pay. And in the very, very first case, in the very, very first book, the juror, the foreperson of the jury, who announces the conviction of the guy who killed the police officer that I explained before, that juror goes shopping to pick up a birthday present for her daughter, gets on the subway and is going home, and someone walks up behind her and pushes her in front of a subway train and kills her. So there is always a price to pay. The devil doesn't let anybody get away with what happens and with the conviction. And I've woven in some problems in which Michael's family is threatened. His father was almost killed by the devil. So it's I think that I really love the cases, and I really love the stories, and if I do say so myself, I really love book 3 because I had my hand in these cases, and they were big cases.
Yeah.
And
it's outstanding. We've been talking with Mike Vecchione. Mike, I could talk with you all day, but I'm just about out of time. If people want to get all 3 of these books, they can do so on Amazon. They can either search your last name, Vecchione, Vecchione, or just search Fallen Angel, and the whole series comes up. But before I let you go, the whole series tackles pretty profound questions about good and evil. Do you think the line between the two is clear cut, or does the story explore some shades of gray as well?
No, it does explore shades of gray. Absolutely, there's no question about it. But in the end, the whole purpose of Michael being involved was to make sure that the trial or the investigation was handled properly, as opposed to the devil having such a role in destroying these cases. Michael doesn't allow that to happen. So there are shades of gray, but I would say more towards it's more black and white than gray, but there are some shades of gray. You have to, Frank. You have to make, in writing novels, you have to add those kinds of factors. And one last thing before you go, you asked me about the difference, true crime and novels. I love writing the novels because in some situations I can make things happen differently than they did in true life, in real life, when I didn't agree, with the results in real life. In Crooked Brooklyn, I had a case that I had to dismiss involving an FBI agent, which he was involved with the murder of four people.
Yeah. By the way, if people are interested in that and your thought process behind that Lindley DeVecchio case, people should listen to the podcast that I did with you on the Racket Report, where we get into that case in some detail. Yes. Needless to say, I was pretty unhappy about the way that case ended as well. But they could just search the Racket Report. But go ahead, finish your thought.
No, that's it. That I now sit down and I get to a point in a particular case and I can say, you know what, I'm going to make this happen this way because it'll fit my my narrative as I'm writing, and that's a fun thing to do. And I don't do it a lot. I don't make up something that is completely outrageous, but it does it does give me a little bit of pleasure to do things that way. I want to add one other thing in terms of buying. Other than Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, you can get them. You can get them on Walmart as well online, and a site that is relatively new but very good, which is called ShopBooksDirect.com, and they carry all of the books. Book one has also an audio. All of these are also digital books as well as paper, hardcover. But they're also, book one has I did the audio book for it, and that's out. The book two audio book will be out probably within the next week or two. And then I'm going to sit down now and do the audio book for book three.
Outstanding.
And the publisher has given me the green light to do a book four, which I'm going to do as well.
Well, that's great. Well, there's going to be a lot of people stuck in traffic hoping that your reading of the Fallen Angel series gets them through that traffic. Mike Vecchione, it's always a treat to talk with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Have a good one, and happy Thanksgiving to you and to your listeners.
Thank you. Best to you and your family as well. If you want to comment on any portion of our discussion, you can give me a call, 646-720-0635. That's 646-720-0635. This is The Other Side of Midnight. Straight ahead.
The Other Side of Midnight.